Thanks again for having me, everybody. It's been a nice evening so far. And I'm standing here as Nvidia's head of VR for Europe. And what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about the experience I made with pitches. And before I start with the presentation, I want to tell you a little bit of a funny story of my time in Silicon Valley. So end of last year, me and two experts from the industry came together and started a startup in virtual reality. It's called Realities.io. We were doing real-world scans of interesting places, and then we put them into virtual reality so you can look at them. It's free on Steam. Get it if you want. I still got stocks, so please fuel the economy a little bit. What my experience in the States is that everybody's kind of interested in finding a cool company, investing in this future to be Facebook kind of enterprise that everyone's dreaming about, and it's pretty crazy. Pitches happen there everywhere. So one of my first pitches was actually we were at CES. There was a VR event at a nightclub. And I was just standing there casually in the line for the nightclub, and behind me, some guy asked me, "Hey, who are you? You don't look American." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm Dominic. I'm from Germany. Here with two of my colleagues, we're doing a virtual reality startup." And he's like, "What? Tell me more about this virtual reality startup of yours." And in the end, it turned out this guy was an investor. So essentially, one of my first pitches was just super randomly in a line for the nightclub in the States. So this shows you a little bit about how intrinsic it is to the culture that people are always pitching their own stuff. If somebody has a T-shirt company who's doing it on the side, he's pitching it to you. He's always going to do that. So that is one of the first things that I want to tell you is just pitch whatever you can. If you have a passion for something, if it's your own enterprise, if it's your own company, your own dream, don't be the shy guy from Germany or the shy guy from Europe that's like, yeah, I'm doing this thing. It's pretty cool. Just be proud of what you're doing. That's the first lesson that I learned is everybody could be interested in what you're talking about. So just be yourself and be very enthusiastic about what you're doing. So, hi, my name is Dominic Eskofier. I've been a virtual reality enthusiast for a long time. I've told you a little bit about me already. My first experience with the Oculus Rift is not this one, but actually the one with the duct-taped prototype of the Oculus Rift. So 4 years ago, I was working in the games industry as an editor and games website manager, and through that, I had the chance to check out this cool Kickstarter thing, which no one really knows about. What is it? Is it really that cool? But if you guys remember the Kickstarter video, there were people like Gabe Newell, Cliff Bleszinski, all these Michael Abrash, all these people that are really masterminds of their business. They were saying the Oculus Rift is something cool, so I better check it out. And this is me at the publishing house I was working at, which is called Computech. It's a publisher of PC games, SFT, PC games hardware, those kind of magazines. And I convinced the PC games hardware team that they need an Oculus Rift because it's the cool new thing and it's going to be super big. And I think what's showing in the background is actually Darkfield VR from Daniel Potts and the other guys from VR Bits. I'm not quite sure. He might be saying no to that, but it seems like it's that game that I'm playing at the moment. And like I told you, ever since I tried the duct tape prototype, I became a huge virtual reality enthusiast. So I did everything I could do. I convinced my colleagues that it's super cool. I founded my own meetup to put as many VR headsets on as many faces as possible. And then I went to Silicon Valley. And one of the things I learned in Silicon Valley from pitching is you always have to put up a huge number on screen. So this is the amount of seconds since I tried the original duct tape prototype. Just for shits and giggles, a big number is always very helpful. It really is like that. And the other things I learned are I'm gonna go through in this talk. And the first of all is be enthusiastic. Virtual reality is such a great medium. If you've never experienced it, you don't really know what people are talking about. So if you all remember one of your first experiences with VR, you might have had just such a face, because this is what virtual reality does to you. And actually, this is something that I'm doing before every talk I'm giving. So I'm sharing my kind of secret tips here. I'm remembering the first time when I did VR, how I felt, how I thought for days and days and days about how many industries this thing could change, how many people could learn better, how many people could maybe even save lives with something like that. And some of the pitches we're seeing later are actually very, very keen on changing things on a larger scale. So for me, virtual reality is really, you have to make yourself aware that some people out there have never experienced it, and once they put it on, they're gonna be super enthusiastic, and they're gonna be awesome, and everything's gonna be wow. Even after you if you have spent hours in virtual reality, make sure that you're transporting this feeling to everyone else, because otherwise you're just a sales guy. And then, it's quite hard, but be cool on stage. So it's really, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to look like this guy. So for example, if I'm standing over here, and I've seen this a ton of times, people just standing like this at the podium, like a preacher in the church, just telling stories about the cool things. It makes a ton of a difference if you just step out and get one of these microphones, get one of these clickers, and just freely speak to the audience. Because that's the easiest way of talking to someone, is if you use all your gestures, if you use emotions from your whole body language, it's going to be much more interesting for people to watch. Because if I'm just standing there like this, you're probably going to fall asleep or look at your smartphones or whatever one's doing in the 21st century. So take your time, take a deep breath, whatever, think of your mom, do something that makes you not look like this. This is very, very important. If you're not confident in your speaking skills, train them in front of a mirror. It's super stupid, but it really makes a ton of a difference. If you have buddies that are like your friends or your family, pitch in front of them. They won't give a shit about the stuff that you're talking about, business models and stuff. They are interested in how you perform. They will give you honest feedback, and that is very, very important. And if you don't have any family or friends, you can even learn presentation skills in VR. So there's an app, you put goggles on, and then you have a virtual audience like this, and you talk to them. You can even make gestures with the controllers. Then there's people booing at you or even throwing tomatoes. So those kind of things help you to just be more confident in the stuff that you're talking about. Because most of you are experts in what they're doing. So why be shy? Why not stand there with confidence and say, hey guys, I'm going to tell you a little bit about virtual reality. And stand easy is one of those things. I just showed you standing at the podium, just being very, very close-minded, or at least talking from the body language. That's not really helpful. So one of the things that people love about Steve Jobs is he's a great presenter. And he's doing that by not standing around. If you ever watched any of the Apple keynotes back when he was still alive, he was on stage. He was filling the stage, even if he was just in one corner. He was everywhere. So this is one of the things that I learned is stand easy. What you also shouldn't do, and these are just the basics, but I wanna cover them, is use one of these confidence monitors. Many of you in the back won't see it, but there's a monitor here that's actually showing my slides. And if you have something like that, it's super helpful, because you don't have to stand awkwardly on the side and always look like this and never talk to the audience. I'm just pointing out at things that might be on the slide. It's much more interesting for the audience if you're talking to them, because that's what they're here for. This is very, very important. So one of the hints I got is feet forward, shoulder wide apart. You don't have to be so strict, but it helps. And then some of you might have seen that little sign in the corner. It says Prezi. And what Prezi can do is not only do the typical PowerPoint stuff that I had right now, but it can do things like this. So it can do something fancy, something that makes your eyes at least a little bit more focused on what this guy in front is talking about than just PowerPoint slides, which are usually a little bit boring. And I mean, it's 90s technology, so there are cooler presentation tools that you can use for things like that. So if you really want to win an audience over, and you don't only want to talk to them and be enthusiastic and be inspiring, also do something for their eyes. Just do something that catches their eyes and keeps them on track. And then one of the things that's a little bit not as basic is be aware of the audience. So who you are pitching to is essential in the amount of information you're going to relate to that audience. So for example, if you're standing in front of an audience of beginners, you can even wow them with a Mattel Viewmaster. You're not going to have a hard time. You're going to tell them about the very essentials, about what you're doing, what virtual reality is. You want to be really top level if you're doing things like that. And then there are enthusiasts. So the enthusiasts are probably the kind of people that strap whatever they have on their face. They will not care about spending hours on end in virtual reality. You want to talk to them very differently than to a audience of beginners. So what you want to do is you want to go into technical details. You want to make sure your audience understands that you're not only talking about the top-level VR stuff, but you know about latency, you know about things like motion to photon, you know about things like whatever redirected walking. Just whatever your interest lies in. Just talk about something that's really close to you. Win over that audience of enthusiasts by being enthusiasts yourself. And then there's people with money. And for many of you out there starting up businesses and doing like very early on projects, these are probably the persons that you really want to make sure your pitch is really, really good. Because those are the people that in the end will help you realize your vision. And even if you're bootstrapped, so if you put in your own financials to run your company, you still want to make sure that you have very good pitching skills. For example, for the press. So the press might come over, see something, and you want to be able to talk to them in a way that they think, oh, this guy, he's got it. He knows what he's talking about. So that is very important. So pitching is not only for the investors, but pitching is also for everyone else. But still, these are the guys that might make your dream come true. So I want to go into a little bit more of detail. If you're ever presenting to an investor audience, here are a couple of things that I learned in Silicon Valley. One of the things that I learned is, and this is taken from a survey of pitch decks. So this is not a presentation. These are not presentation statistics, but decks. But they are still very, very close to what you should put into a pitch deck for business reasons. So one of them. For an explanation first. So they looked at 500 different pitch decks. So what kind of slides were included, and also what people spend most time on. So just gonna go away so people can take photos. Awesome. So for example, they 37% of the people that did pitch decks had the company purpose in that pitch deck of 15 to 20 slides. Then the one with the lowest is the why now. So why now is always a question that many investors ask, but only about half of the people were actually talking about that. And what that shows you is this is what the entrepreneurs think is interesting. So the entrepreneurs think that you definitely have to cover the product, which is super. Oh, sorry. Hey, I'm Dominic. Did you know that? Did someone? Okay, I'm just gonna skip through this real quick. Woo, there's the cool effect. And the enthusiasts. And there's the people with money. So, what we're also seeing here is 100% of the entrepreneurs want to talk about themselves. So that's a kind of an easy one. Business model, some of them might not be really. About a fifth doesn't know what they want to sell, so they're not including it in the pitch deck. And financials are also a little bit lacklusterly covered. So this is the side from the entrepreneurs. When you send those pitch decks to investors, this is what the investors are spending time on. So who would have guessed? Investors spend most time on financials. So even though financials aren't covered in all the pitch decks, the investors still spend most time in that. So that shows you a little bit of a contrast from where the entrepreneurs think the interest is and also the investor. So an investor spends a ton of time on financials. They want to know, how do I make money through that company? They are looking at the team. So what's the background of these guys? Do they even know what they're doing there? Competition is very interesting because obviously if you're building a business, you have to know who your competition is. So your investors are always going to ask you, who's your competition? Because first of all, they want to see that you have an overview of the market, and second of all, they want to do due diligence. So that means that they want to look at other companies that are doing the same thing to see if they might not invest in those companies instead of the one they originally talked to. They are a shady bunch of people sometimes. The why now question, well, no. Sorry. The why now question is also very interesting. Company purpose, of course. Business model is something especially early stage investors aren't really caring about the business model so much, especially in virtual reality where the market has yet to grow. So the investors that are specifically targeting virtual reality and augmented reality, they are looking more at the vision and the team and the potential market size than the actual business model of things, because no one knows really how to make money in virtual reality. So if you go out there to an investor and say, I know exactly how many copies I'm going to sell, I know exactly the market size that's going to be there in 2 years, that's all crystal ball knowledge. So the investor will actually not trust you because you're essentially telling him bullshit, because no one knows how big the market's going to be. Everyone hopes it's going to be huge, but no one really knows. So if you're not into that too much, that's okay. What you want to cover though is the product, market size, problem, solution. So problem, solution is something that actually everybody tells you that you have to have in your pitch deck, because companies usually are solving problems. So for example, I'm solving the problem of people not being able to travel the world. So they can do that by putting on a virtual reality headset. So that's a solution for a problem. But actually, the investors don't give that much interest, or aren't that much interested in the actual problem solution kind of things. They want to know more about financials, team, competition, and so on and so forth. But what's interesting is product. What are you doing when you're doing virtual reality? The most effective thing you can do when you are doing a virtual reality pitch or a demo is actually showing something virtual reality. This is actually the one thing I learned from pitches is make sure whoever you are talking to, make sure that he is trying your demo. Because a virtual reality demo is going to stick in their head way longer than just you talking about a PDF in front of them. It's gonna be, they're gonna have a spatial memory of that. And it's also a thing that you can only use right now, because a couple of years down the line, no one will really get wowed by virtual reality anymore. It's just gonna be there. But right now, if you're going to someone who hasn't seen as many things, for example, the press or people, investors, for example, that aren't too much into VR, you can have a great effect on them by just showing them virtual reality. And then, if your demo, for example, is the first thing they ever saw in virtual reality, they're gonna remember it. I'm sure most of you remember your first virtual reality experience. So use that as a tool, as a key for opening up that relationship. Use that as a show-off and as a long-lasting impression. But if you're doing a presentation, technical things might go wrong, as you have seen with my pitch as well. Live demos are cool if they work, of course. So this, some of you might know this. This was made on purpose. So if you look up there, it says GLaDOS. So this is a fake blue screen. But I've seen this happening. When Windows 95 was originally announced, Bill Gates was standing on stage, or I'm not sure if it was Bill or Steve Ballmer, and there was a blue screen of death right behind them. So if you have to do a live virtual reality demo, make sure you double check everything. Make sure that everything works just as you intend. And then if something goes off, have a fallback plan. So if it doesn't work, always have something that you can talk about during those 5 awkward minutes where somebody tries to get the thing rolling again. That is very, very important. And again, stand easy, talk a little bit about what you're doing, just distract the audience a little bit from the actual technical difficulties, which is it happens to everyone. It's technology. It's 2016, but we're still using Skype and trying to understand what the other guy is saying that's in the next room. You know what I mean? Technology is always going to be a stumbling block for you. But I said that you have to show virtual reality, but you shouldn't show virtual reality because it might go wrong. So how do you solve that problem? So what I always did is use a call to action instead. So when I was doing pitches in the Valley, I made sure that I showed a grand vision. I made the people very interested in what we're building. I wanted to make them really see what this guy is talking about. And then what I always did is, hey, by the way, we're over there, check us out. So this is the one thing that's really, really helped us. And one of the people that this has worked on was actually Mark Rain, the CEO and co-founder of Epic Games, who saw one of my pitches and I was doing the exact same thing. I was saying, hey, if you want to check it out, I know it talked big words here, and I know we want to change the industry, yada, 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 but if you want to check it out, just go over there. And 5 minutes later, Mark Rain was checking out our demo and tweeting about it and writing on Facebook about it. So that's the kind of thing that can happen if you just grasp the moment and just try to get people into your virtual reality demo. So that's one of the key takeaways from my talk. Besides the basics of just be a extroverted speaker. Try to get as many pitches in as possible just to practice, and also the basics like techniques. One of the key takeaways is make people try your virtual reality demo. It's going to stick in their heads so much more. And the other key takeaway is if you're talking to different audiences, then use different approaches. So make sure that your audience understands what you're talking about. So for example, for those people that are pitching later to the teams, make sure you are motivating. So make sure if you're talking about the idea that you want to build in the next 48 hours, make sure that people really want to help you. Make sure that they are really enthusiastic about diving in and making something happen. So that's something that you guys are going to have much harder because you only have 120 seconds later on during the pitches. But still, just be yourself. Try to be as enthusiastic as possible about it, and then use a call to action, just like I'm doing now. If you have any questions, then ask them now. This is the time for it. If not, then thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate the time and appreciate being here, and wish you all a great HACKVENTION. The sound is off. Oh no, we've got 2 more minutes for questions. Anybody, any questions, any tricks, some secret sauce that people want to learn? Christian. Sorry? I haven't counted them, but like if you're really counting those pitches where I was standing in the line for a nightclub, it's probably 200, 300, 400, something like that. We were spending time at Boost VC at the accelerator, and essentially what their job is to just bring investors in and show them through. So during the first 4 weeks, we had about 100 investors coming in and just looking at our stuff. And then later on, I did a ton of pitches for presentations at meetups. And I'm still continuing with my job at Nvidia, because this is the kind of message I want to get out: is build something cool for virtual reality, make it happen, find someone who gives you money, and then pitch it like a badass.
Thank you.
One more question?
So how do you get a chance to pitch? So what is before you are actually standing there and pitching?
So the question was, sorry, what was the question? You distracted me with the microphone now.
So how do you get there to stand there and pitch? What's happening before? So you have to write an email or call somebody via phone?
You mean in this particular?
No. In the other cases, when you
all the other cases, if you really wanna pitch, your first step is probably local meetups. So start small. If you wanna learn your presentation skills, why not start with a small audience? Just go there. There's a friendly atmosphere. No one's gonna judge you. So meetups are one thing. Where you can also show your idea, and then if you want to take part in conferences, you have to actively engage them. So part of my job as CEO was to actually find speaking opportunities for us, find places where we can use those kind of conferences for good networking, good contacts, those kind of things. So just work your way up from low things, and then at some point it's just coming in. So essentially, when I talked to Bastian, he asked me, "Hey, do you not want to support us with a talk?" And now I'm standing here. So sooner or later, once you're confident enough, then it keeps rolling in.
Okay,
I guess.
thank you.
All right, that's it. Sag mir einmal kurz, are we prepared for the idea pitches, or do we want to?
I think there are a few left.
Okay, how many are left?
The most.
Okay, got it. So the next couple of minutes, we're gonna present all the ideas that will be realized during the VR hackathon. So there's about 15 teams, I think, 12 teams. I actually haven't counted them, but there's a lot of ideas going around. So we have both the people that are sponsoring the topics, so companies from the real world that want to see something built for their workflows, for their production efforts. And then we also have ideas from the participants themselves. So there's a ton of people over there. Some came from San Francisco, some came from other parts of Europe, some came from the next town. But they are from everywhere, and they also have some great ideas that they want to realize during the next 48 hours. And we're actually going to start off with a company that wants to build a virtual reality app for 360-degree content, and that is Bild.de. Is anybody from Bild.de here?